Hey guys, Miss Warren here with the next stage of our paper mache masks. Right now I have my armature completed, like the core or the bones of my mask is all done. I put a little tape around the edge because I find it makes it stronger and protects, if you have some jagged edges, it kind of protects it from poking through. I taped my kind of sun crown on the top of my mask. So there, I've kind of got it started. Now we're ready to start the paper macheing part. You want to put something under you because it gets pretty messy and it's kind of hard to scrub up once it's dry. It's because it's made of paste. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get newspaper and I'm going to tear it into strips. So I already tore it long ways. Okay. So this is a pretty good size. If you get too big, it tends to wrinkle up on you and you get a bunch of texture on your paper mache project. Some people like to use small squares. I like to use longer strips. We're gonna put about 3 layers on here on the front and back, all the sides. We're gonna do the first layer vertical, like put our strips straight up and down. Our second layer horizontal, so it makes it strong. It overlaps all the first strips. And our last layer vertical. Now I like to let it dry between layers. So we're gonna do 1 layer and then I'm gonna let it dry before I add the next layer. I think I'm gonna start on the inside of the mask. I'm gonna flip it over this way because if I put it on this side first, this would be touching and it would be all wet and gooey. This way, if I put it here, it's only touching the sides there. So I'm gonna do this side first. So what I have for paste here, paper mache paste, is just flour and water. You can do flour and Elmer's glue, you can do flour and water, you can do flour, Elmer's glue and water. There's special paste mixtures. Flour and water will give you the stiffest mixture and the hardest mixture, but it also molds easily. And if you use it for more than like 2 or 3 days, it starts to smell funky. Glue and water will give a more rubbery and bendable mixture. And it won't smell funky after a couple of days. But for here at home, I decided to go with the flour and water mixture. So you want it pretty liquidy because you're going to be coating each strip. Just zoom out a little bit so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm going to take the strip and I'm going to coat it on the front and the back. Now I don't want a big drippy mess. You see how it's dripping everywhere? I don't want that all over the table. So I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to run it down either side like this and get all the extra goo back in the bucket before I take it over here. It's nice and saturated. It's pretty covered. You can see it's on my hands too. And then I'm going to lay it flat on my piece and I'm going to smooth it out. This will make a nice, smooth, paintable surface. The plastic, the paint wouldn't stick very well to the plastic and it's all kind of lumpy. So then I'm gonna just keep going. So the next piece I do, I want it to slightly overlap the previous piece that I put. And I think I'm gonna make my strips a little bit smaller because I'm gonna get up in this area here. So I'm gonna coat it both sides, make sure it gets a good amount on there. Kind of wipe off the extra drips with my fingers. You can also kind of wipe it on the side here. And then I'm going to place it where it slightly overlaps where I just did. Now maybe not with this coat, maybe with the next one, but we're going to want a coat that wraps around the edge on the inside of the eye there too. Now you can use any paper. I've got some like school paper towels that work pretty well. These actually give a pretty smooth surface. As long as you tear them into strips and coat them in paste. Recycled paper of just about any sort works. Now the magazine paper or photograph paper that's all slick and shiny won't really absorb the paste, so it's really not the best to use. See, school paper towels work pretty well. And I'm gonna fold this little bit that I have hanging down, I'm gonna fold it over to the front. There we go, so I keep that eye hole opening. going to fold this little bit that's overhanging to the front as well. It doesn't want to fold for me. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to keep doing bits of paper, tearing them into small strips. And laying them down. I want to cover every last inch of this. Now, if you're getting a fold like this, you can overlap it and fold it, or if you need to tear it a little bit, you can tear it a little bit. If you need to use smaller pieces, if it's folding a lot and buckling a lot, you might need to use smaller pieces because it's a curved area. This through the eye hole so it kind of goes around that edge. And it doesn't have to be perfectly vertical. If you start slanting horizontally, might need, you know what, that's not going to fold across there. I'm going to tear this in half so it will fit in that space more easily. I'm going to put my extra piece here, and I'm going to fold this through that hole there. Making sure it's all nice and overlapped, that we don't have any gaps or holes in the plastic that are not covered. I'm gonna kind of double it up right here because I can see some plastic gaps. Here we go. So we've almost got this side done. I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over to the other side so you can kind of see me get around, because I'm gonna have to cover the cardboard as well, because I want this to be like one solid piece by the time I'm done. Okay, now this gets a little bit tricky because I want this to overlap the pieces that I cut out, but I still want them to be distinct pieces. So I'm going to tear a little bit here so I can poke this part into the eye hole. And then right here where it kind of has to wrap around the edge, I'm going to tear a little bit so it can wrap around the edge of this crown part. When this paste dries, It's going to create a bond between the main body and the little cardboard that I just have taped on here. Grab some more paste. Make sure, and I'm going to go behind it as well on both sides, covering the entire surface. See, it's getting a little drippy. That's why I wanted this newspaper under me with paper mache. Try to make sure there's no folds or gaps or holes, because those will show up when you paint. Try to make this as smooth as we can. So I'm going to run my finger over it, make sure that any parts that are sticking up kind of start to lay flat on the surface. Okay, so here's another thing. You want to do one side then the other. Because I'm holding it this way, some of the stuff from the inside started to fall off. So you want to do one side, let it kind of dry a little bit, and then flip it over to the other side. But I was just really wanting to show y'all that y'all have to wrap the cardboard parts with the paper mache as well. Okay, so I'm going to continue this. I hope that gives you enough of an idea to get started on this, and I look forward to seeing your work.